Hello everyone, I am Professor A and today we are going to have a review on planning systems and system planning by Michael Batty. To understand the systems approach, let's look first at the background of planning in Britain, UK. In Britain, after the failure of comprehensive planning, there was a need of intellectual heritage in science and systems and the need of practical and educational heritage. We are talking about the 1960s where there existed multiple successes in the field of science and technology. This led to a need of a system which should be catering to the problems in comprehensive planning with scientific and technological solutions. Let's first discuss the shortcomings of comprehensive planning. The single perspective and the single hierarchy of values approach restricts it to obtain the commitment of all parties. A comprehensive plan is independent of external forces and conditions, which does not allow for any large uncertainties in the conditions and limits autonomous choice. Fragmented knowledge of planners led to specialized individuals questioning their domain. Political and administrative bodies don't want to exercise their absolute power to make any radical changes which may lead them to lose votes. Comprehensive planners worked with models of balanced development and thus calls for rapid and far-fetching changes that cannot be programmed in advance. After World War II, there was a need for system of planning. In the early 20th century, post-World War II, there was a need for system in planning. So the idea surfaced that we can develop the links between small elements that can emerge in an ad hoc manner if proper hierarchy of matter is present, which is the idea behind general systems theory. Planners tried to borrow concepts from various streams which included social and natural sciences. Simultaneously, there was a lot of development going on in the field of computer science, artificial intelligence, and mathematical modeling. This led to the development of more formal and systematic theories of the city system, which, with their articulation as mathematical models with strong relationship in social sciences. Thus, a logic-driven solutions were accepted by the society. The failure of comprehensive planning system led to a re-evaluation of the planning system, as there was a need in the market for planning education and for practical purposes too. As in Britain, planning education was practically based on a strong affinity to practice, and thus large planning schools readily accepted the system's approach. In the 1960s, major technological innovations happened. This led to the acceptance of such solution by the masses. If we look, we have a lot of theories during that time. But the systems approach came forward and was promoted by major schools of planning. So, let's first understand what is exactly systems approach. But to understand the systems approach, first we need to understand PPT, that is procedural planning theory. Procedural planning theory is majorly divided into two parts. First is the systems approach and the second is the rational planning theory. There were a few assumptions that we need to consider to understand the system's approach. There is a rational man. The aim of the rational man is to maximize self-interest. Then there is a system that has various elements like transportation, housing, infrastructure, commercial, services. All these elements are interlinked. Rationality is the quality of being based on reasons and logic. There are two kinds of rationality, formal rationality and substantial rationality. Formal rationality is concerned with completing goals no matter what the cost and considers qualitative data. Substantial rationality considers all relevant values and cultural obligations while making certain decisions. The major difference between the systems approach and rational planning theory is that the system approach considers formal and substantial as one, whereas rational planning theory distinguishes between the two. Now, let's see how the system approach works. In the systems approach, we primarily make observations through empirical studies. Then, after primarily processing, we create a hypothesis. In this hypothesis, we do a comprehensive data collection. On the collected data, a mathematical operation is done and a logic is created. Then, on the logic optimum simulation is run. This process leads to creating a plan with predefined objective. During this time, a major prominent figure came into the limelight, whose theories were taken as a base to build upon system planning. The person was Mr. Brian McLoughlin. Let's talk more about Mr. McLoughlin. Let's hear from the man himself.
Myself, Brian McLoughlin, hailing from Tyneside, gaining an honours degree in Town and Country Planning at King's College, Newcastle upon Tyne, then part of University of Durham in 1954. The college had been the first to offer a full-time undergraduate degree in Town and Country Planning in 1945. These are the books which are published prior to my book, which helped me in understanding the essence of planning. I published three significant papers. The first paper was written in 1965 and traced the origins of planning in the wake of 1947 Town and Country Planning Act. This talked about the new town, national parks, city centre and housing development of the London County Council. The second paper, which was published in 1965, talked about planning and administration in metropolitan Manchester City. The third paper, published in 1966, spelled out the whole story in its practical application from the definitions of goals and preparation of the plan to the key role of the development control and implementation. From these papers, I was clear about system approach in my mind and was a supporter of the journalist in planning education. This led me to write the book Urban and Regional Planning. The original intention was to write a joint book with Mr. George Chadwick on systems planning, as we had worked out many ideas together but ended in separate ways. So I published my book independently in 1969. The book Urban and Regional Planning was a huge success and increased the widespread influence and importance of systems planning. The chapters were clear and they were explained practically, illustrating the idea of a hypothetical town, Macclesfield, in the book. Later, I wrote a follow-up book, Control and Urban Planning, in 1973.
But this book had not seen success as the previous one, and it was neither translated nor reprinted in the next edition.
Now, let's talk about my book, Urban and Regional Planning. In this, I tried to use a hypothetical town, Macclesfield, to illustrate ideas. The goal of the book in planning as a process for designing new city systems. Now let's have a discussion on the elements in this book. Firstly, I tried to explain the structure of a city. Then I talked about the behavior of a rational man, from which I derived the behavior of the community. Then I tried to create a process of development that a planner should refer to while developing a city. Next, the planner is considered as the key agent who determines and structures various communication in the city. A planner should evolve the whole model with time. This will improve the efficiency and make it more robust. Shifting, adapting, and evolving. The model will improve its dynamism, which was missing in the comprehensive planning theory. In the end, I tried to explain various methods through which we can optimize the system. I tried to create an intellectual and methodological framework through which I tried to define which would be the activities of rational man would be involved in. They were those activities be performed and try to explain the whole system through various linkages and relationships. The planner is the main person who would take decisions for various actions and policies through his technical knowledge, and these steps would be implemented for the betterment of society. The planner then would propose some model packages which would include frameworks to improve the community's future.
Thank you, Mr. McLoughlin. Now, let us resume with our discussion. Now, we have to understand why did the system approach fail. According to Rittel and Weber, it failed to attempt to glorify the role of planners as a normal system analyst can himself discover the hidden character and expose its true nature skillfully, exercise its root causes. Batty criticized it for being outdated, as in the age of advocacy planning, where planning had become far more politicized and complicated systems approach is inappropriate. The theory was critiqued for its planner-centric approach and lack of involvement of public participation. It promotes bureaucracy and elitism. Falaudi pointed that system theorists did not pay heed to the complexity involved, nor did they appreciate how some forms of complexity, such as politically conflicting goals, would make objectives unattainable through this approach. It promotes justification for elitism. Systems approach promotes bureaucracy and elitism as a whole system was controlled by few people. Moreover, Falaudi further pointed out that planners were running after a mirage called scientific planning, which of course was not well suited to tackle ambiguity and uncertainty. Politicians were afraid that they will lose votes if they will apply the radical changes suggested by the planner. I hope you understood the discussion on systems planning and planning systems. Let's end here. Hope to see you soon. Thank you.